Looks so beautiful.
Yeah, I'm in the bush, like in the middle of nowhere, no power, no water, nothing.
You are camping or
I'm on a farm,
dope.
a- and I'm happy that I'm on a farm on the day we are talking about self-compassion, because actually, as a parent, that's one way where I really um, go somewhere, no interruption. Even the internet is through a very complicated system. So I was worried that I won't be able to make it, but it worked. It worked.
We are here now.
Yes, we're here now.
Well, I will open up the floor before we start. Is that okay?
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to Fran and Friends podcast. I have Dima Istambouli here. She is the founder of Mind Architecture, the author of Intentional Reset, and also the foundation, your foundation,
Yeah,
Parents
it's the Working Parents Institute.
Working Parents Institute. And whenever Dima shows up, it's always a wonderful synchronicity of things to just magically happen. So I really
Yeah.
enjoy um, the wisdom that she comes with to help parents identify areas that could be very useful if put into practice.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like, it's basically what we're sharing is more of a conversation of two mothers who went through it all, realized in different ways how we can really improve that. And I think the main purpose is, until today, like, that's what we talk about. We see parents, and sometimes even, you remember last time we talked about your mom, we talked about my mom, we talk about the people around us. And when we see them acting in ways that are really not convenient, I would say, I'm not going to say negative because negative is really relative, but it's just so I don't know how to explain it, because being on the farm yesterday, I was talking to my partner about this, and I said, when I was younger, I don't recall a time when my parents were those, like, they were amazing. They worked hard, they sacrificed everything for us, yeah?
Yeah.
But we never had the time to stop and just reflect on what's going on in our lives. Yeah. The emotional support, all of that was not available. And I'm not blaming them. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying we reach that time now. We realize it. Me and you realize that there was something wrong. But there are
Right.
so many people out there, they feel something is wrong. They can't pick it up. And where it shows, it's in their relationship with their parent, with their kids.
Yep. And I think you're right too, Dima. It's also in their relationship with their parents. Because I notice when I talk to people of our age or just people that have children and they're having issues with their kids, it's a high probability that they're having issues also with their parents.
Yes, and that's why we decided this time to call it, to talk about self-compassion, because just to go quickly over what we talked about last week, we were talking about positive reinforcement or punishment. And
Hmm.
through the conversation, we were talking about how we can build really good relationships with our kids, because that's the only way we can rectify this relationship and move it into a healthier one. However, if we don't have a healthy relationship with ourselves, we cannot move forward in our relationship either with our kids or with our partners.
Totally.
So that's why today we want to shed the light on the importance of understanding where we come from, because yes, our relationship with our parents in a way or another has affected the outcome in our parenting, and we want to contribute in helping people see how they can go back on track by understanding who they are.
Yeah, I think when I started to pursue my parenting skills, so going taking child development classes, I realized the other day that I wasn't really going to try to learn parenting skills for the kids. I was really learning how to be a better person for myself so that way I can be a better person to parent my children.
Very, very true. And I'll start with the story that happened this week. And I always try to give examples, real examples. But first, we'll tell Aurora that yes, it's gonna be recorded, and
Oh,
Fran is taking care of
yeah,
it.
I got you, Aurora.
So one of the stories that happened this week, I was with a family member, and the kids were really unsettled when they were going to sleep, and they are all under 5, yeah.
Okay.
And one of the parents went and said, "Stop making these sounds, otherwise I'll lock you out like a dog." And this is where this
Oh,
is where I stopped, and in these situations I understand where the parent comes from, because honestly speaking, when I was at some point, I had 3 under 3, yeah. And I would really lose my head because I can't hear them crying. And by
yeah.
8, I want them in bed. I wanted to work. I wanted to finish what I had to do. But now it's like I get this feeling of like, oh, no, 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 no. You will become my customer if you continue like that. And and how many of us use power, use authority to
Yes.
make our kids do the things we want them to do
Right.
without noticing that our words are only a reflection of how we feel and how critical we are on ourselves.
Totally. And what that I think, like, in a way, to me, I think that also would be a form of emotional manipulation, right?
Yes, and without knowing, this is the hardest part, is that if every parent understood the damage we are doing by
Mm.
words we think that don't make any effect, life would be much better.
Oh, yeah, totally. No, totally. If parents took their own time to identify what it is that they were feeling, what they needed for themselves, like you said, it would be the response to another person, whether it be their child, their partner, whoever it is, it would be more self compassionate because now they're questioning why they're saying what they're saying and the
I'm so
motives behind.
happy. The line is cutting, I guess. That's the farm. You're very right, and I like that you connected the idea of partners again to the conversation, because we will see that a lot of people that act this way with their children act this way with their partners. And this
Right.
is where we start seeing a lot of divorces. And I want to talk about this, like a small parenthesis, actually linked to what we talked about last week. And I want to apply it on partners. So, most of the time, what's happening is when we are not happy with ourselves, we project it on the other person, and
Mhm.
we start treating them in a way that we also want to control our partners. We want them to do whatever we want them to do, and we completely put we don't put ourselves in their shoes,
Mm,
just because we're running away from a certain pain we had when we were younger, or we
mm.
had through life.
The experience, right?
Yeah, like, and I'm studying now for my final exam in psychology. Yeah, so that's the first, like, the introduction to
Ooh.
psychology.
Is
And one
relation.
of the things, it's so interesting because they talk about the different perspectives. Now I'm testing myself. the different perspectives of psychology. Yeah, you have the behavioral, you have the biological perspective, you have the humanistic perspective, you have the psychoanalytic and psychodynamic perspective, and you have the sociocultural perspective. Yeah,
Okay.
but when I read about them, like some of them don't believe, and you have the cognitive perspective. So some of them believe that it's only the environment that affect you.
Mm,
The other one believe it's a conscious, you do things because you're consciously aware and you want to do that.
mm,
Some of them would say it's a human behavior. Some of them would say it's a lack of dopamine because you're doing that behavior. And
mm,
some of them would say it's unconscious motives that get you to do whatever you need to do. And the last one would say, because you are born in this area and you are, let's say, you belong to that church or you belong to that religion, that you are doing your behavior. Honestly speaking, after doing this for the past 7 years, not from a psychologist perspective, from a coach, from a mentor, whatever you want to call me, I realized it's a combination of everything. And
mm-hmm.
yes, our childhood is going to affect us, our environment, even at work. If we're exposed to the same thing over and over again, it's going to affect you, and it's going to affect the way you do, you act. Your beliefs are going to affect you. So when we talk about self-compassion and when we look about self-mastery, I would like to say it, we talk about really stopping and understanding all aspects of ourselves
Mm.
so that next time we are exposed to a stimuli, we can stop and say, okay, which response I really want to choose? And this is emotional intelligence.
No, I totally agree. I'm not sure. Is there something that covers all of those topics? Because all those things they do affect us. I was reading some study. I think it was either by the CDC, and it was saying like it in general, people that live under a certain socioeconomic status, they tend to have higher probabilities of like child abuse, verbal abuse, like all these type of abuses that occur. And it's not really based on color. It's really based on the dynamics of what is occurring within the family home and also outside of the family home.
Yeah, it's I love our conversations. It just relates to everything we're dealing with. The other day we were talking as well about poverty, yeah?
Yeah.
And someone was saying, yeah, it's the poverty that leads people to do this. I said, no, 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 wait. You can have a rich person with low values,
Mm,
and you can have a poor person with low values. So it doesn't matter. So there are values at the start, and yes, the socioeconomics would make things worse if you are coming from a place where you didn't learn the values. And we're not pointing fingers. We're saying sometimes when the parents have dealt for such a long time with poverty, they were not guided in the right way. They started being addicted and doing whatever it takes to get that substance, whether it's alcohol or whether it's drugs. Of course, the children who are there, that they can't learn better than that.
right. And
And some of them would wake up and say, you know what, I don't want to live like that. And I'm sure you've heard the story of the twins. One of them, like in the same family, they were twins. Their father was an addict. One of them, they asked them, sorry, one of them was very successful, and one of them was exactly like his father. And when they asked them, why are you like this? Both of them had the same answer. If I had a father like this, how do you expect me to be?
wow.
So,
Wow.
so that's where you come from a bad environment. If you are exposed to, in the society, your mind goes towards the good, you tend to learn from the mistakes of your parents. If you are in an environment that is not well supported, you tend to follow your parents in the way they treated you.
Yeah. So for myself, I ended up following into my mom's footsteps, and I ended up doing some of the same things that she did, not realizing that even though they weren't exactly the same, if I compared the patterns, the behavior came out just as such. But then I also came to a point where I identified that, dang, this is this is not the direction that I want my life to continue in. So I'm really grateful
Yeah,
that I had that awakening or awareness to say enough is enough.
yeah. And you know, when we get this,
Yeah.
the feeling we get, um, it's a very nice way to see it. So they say, let's say this is your comfort zone. We were born and conditioned to be in a certain comfort zone. That comfort zone give us pleasure, even if it's bad. Eating bad stuff, drinking, smoking, being angry all the time. It's a comfort zone. So it brings us a certain pleasure because we are in a place where we used to. Yeah.
Mm.
Now, nothing will push us to change except if the pain we are getting from that pleasure is much bigger than the pleasure itself.
Yes. Yes.
So I'm sure I would love to know what did you feel so we can relate that concept. I'm
Oh,
sure
so
you felt something and you were losing a lot that you stopped and said, you know what? I'm not losing anymore. This is not working for me. I need to make the effort.
there was two things that happened for me. One of them was my daughter and how I have three kids. So my last kid is the one that pushed me into a space where the other two, they would listen to everything that I said. But with her, she would push me and say things like, I'm not doing this. Why don't you do it? Or things around that. She would push me to like turn my head, and I'm like, is she really disrespecting me right now? So the pattern of her behavior caused me to really zone in on her. I was very angry because I did not expect that kind of behavior from her. Because, as in our culture, and it sounds very similar to yours and other cultures that I've heard of, that when the children, the hierarchy of things, the kids are always listening to the parents, and there's no backlash, there's no talk back, there's there's no dialogue there. You just do what you're supposed to do. And so that was one of the things. The other thing that occurred is that the last relationship that I had with my boyfriend, with the boyfriend at the time, it lasted 2 years. And he was somebody that I really had like a good dynamic with. And when that relationship ended, I was like, I'm really tired of losing in this area. I don't want to lose in relationships anymore. What is it about myself? Because here I am in these relationships, and I'm the denominating factor in this conversation. Like, obviously something is wrong, and I think I'm the problem. So that's what
Yeah,
pushed.
it's so nice to see it from a lived experience because we all go through this. And I wrote a few things so we can take this experience and try to get people understand more. First of all, yes, the minute we feel that we're really losing control completely over our children first, we're
Mm-hmm.
like, why they're not listening to us? Like, and sometimes we want to impose our opinion on them, and this is where it becomes an explosion. Not for the children that listen, because the children that listen, even if they don't agree with you, they might tell you that they don't agree with you, but they will always follow your steps, and they always do because they're afraid to lose your attention or your yeah, like your interest. Yeah. However,
Right.
there is the difference, and this is where we talked about it last time, and it will always surface in the conversation, is the disc, the personality styles. So a lot of times we as parents or we as partners, so we can relate it to self-compassion and self-mastery. We have a certain personality style that do not match our child personality style.
Mm,
And when we are so focused on the control and we want to, it's not in a bad way, but we want to manipulate the outcome and we want the expectations to be exactly like what we want, we would do anything to make it happen. Now, the personality style, the disc, to go through them quickly, we have the dominant, which is 3% of our society. We have
mhm.
the I, influencing, which is 11% of our society. We have the S, which is study, which is 69% of our society. And we have the 17% that comes for the compliant, the C. Okay. Now, if we look deeply into these numbers, we will see that 86% of our society is steady and compliant.
Mm,
And basically, we will always have the main trouble will be between the ones that are the D and I compared
mm.
to the C and S. C and S is about the society is conform, the society is about being compliant, the law is about being compliant. We go to school and they teach us how to be compliant.
Right. They're
And
regulators.
when when we have those kids that are a bit different, this is where the clash is. And this is where I invite parents to say, listen, when you have that child, first of all, it's a blessing because this child is a bit different and they are the one that can make a difference in a society. So instead of trying to get them to follow your instructions literally, you need to try to build a connection with these children. You need to have this kind of partnership, and then the conservative parents and the traditional parents like, no, you can't be a friend to your child. You have to be the authority. They have to be fearful. They need to how do you say to take into account that you are there. And this is
Right.
where I think, no, I I can I don't want to say it's not like I'm right or anyone else is wrong. I have tried and I've been helping so many parents deal with their children, yeah. And when they come to me, they come when it's impossible. Like they tried everything. They tried therapy, they tried everything. And then I look at them and said, did it work for you? They say no. I said, okay, can you give me 1 week where you change your approach? And after 1 week, I want you to call me and tell me what happened. And in that week, I ask them, build a relationship. Consider that child, especially the one with the DNI,
Mm-hmm. You're
as
frozen
your
up.
business partner. So
Could
if
you
you are
repeat what
dealing with a
you
business
said?
partner,
You froze just a little
it
bit.
went back.
You, yeah,
Yeah.
could you
Yeah.
repeat?
I stopped it
The,
when I froze. So if you are dealing with a child, you need to build a business as if you are dealing with a business partner. You
mm,
need to sit with them, take into consideration what they have to say. And this way, when we have different personality styles, we can walk, we will be in charge of making that distance closer so we can talk and influence and inspire them to do the right thing
mm,
without attaching our happiness to the outcome. Which is, if you don't do this to me, I'm not listening to you.
you kind of went out a little bit, Dima.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're going back to this. I was trying to use my earphone, but they dropped anyway.
Okay. I
So
was
can you
gonna
hear me
ask.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I
Yeah.
was.
So we were talking about personality styles, differences, how we can build relationships, and that always takes us back. You cannot even see the difference in personality styles if you're not aware of yourself.
Totally. The behavior with the parents once they're treating this as a trans I guess a business relationship, what are some of the responses that they're getting during that week? And also, do they call you even earlier? What does that look like?
Look, in general, people that come for help, let's say someone coming ask, and I'm not saying as a business only, because I have a lot of people who reach out for me just out of I built those relationships with my tribe on the social media. So a lot of people would reach out just to ask about, well, how can I improve it? And those who try this, they suddenly realize, first of all, you have the first few days, the child, the teenagers specifically, will be doubting because they've always seen that their parents are not listening to them, and suddenly the parent is there like cool, and they're like, "Mom, are you okay? Like, why you
Totally.
didn't react this time?"
Totally. That's that's awesome because it sounds like it didn't take them that long. Like for
No, no. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
'Cause my
And
daughter, it
then,
took her about a year.
yeah, no, it will take time. Listen, when we talk about these things, we will feel better about it. And that's what I say. Change takes time.
Mm,
Changing all this dynamic is definitely going to take time. But what I advocate for is you will feel better on the spot. So when we're talking about parents and we're saying we want to help parents, we want those who are listening to us to understand it's not that we're giving a magic recipe,
mm.
or that's a magic one thing. Yeah. No, it's not. But it's not fair to live a lifetime where we're always stressed and we're not feeling happy.
Mm.
By understanding this knowledge, a parent would feel better knowing that there's a way out, knowing that they can take back the control of their lives, and knowing that if I do small steps today, they're going to lead to a better relationship tomorrow.
Totally. Totally. Um, like I was mentioning earlier, it took me conversation after conversation, and I really had to make sure that the things that I was saying, as far as me making promises, that I met those promises with my children because I had broken so many with them. So once they started establishing, oh, okay, this lady's for real now, she's really doing what she's saying. And then I also took them outside of the home because, home already carries a certain energy. So
Yeah.
I started to create weekly dinner dates with my daughter so that way she can establish um, just camaraderie outside of home and feel safe in her own space. And then I think those things, along with asking her, because one of my cousins, she's also a psychologist, she said, when we have dinner, there's something that you should ask. What's something good and what's something not so good? So we created this kind of dialogue um, during our dinner dates. And that really helped create the foundation for what we have today. She's my bestie.
Yeah. You know what? I love what you talked about. I'm gonna ask you now questions. But
Sure.
first, let me highlight, like, how you said asking what went good, what is wrong, or all of that. There's
Yeah. Well,
also
what's good and what's not
uh,
so good.
yeah, there's also an exercise that is really, really nice. So let me write down before I forget, because I have a very short memory span.
Yeah, okay.
So I want to ask you questions.
Hi,
I'll tell you
lady.
why, because I want to take you to my smile method and how we can get people to really start seeing, because all what we're trying to do today is to tell people how they can really go back and take control of those relationships. So for you to sit with your daughter, I'm sure you did some internal work first, and that's how it
Mm.
affected your relationships and
Yeah,
your parenting. So
totally.
first, I want to mention what you did also, these questions while you're sitting together. So one of the things I learned recently, which is really nice exercise, and I'm going to start implementing it soon. I
Okay,
started with myself, but I'm going to do it as a family. So the
cool.
first thing was, every night before you go to bed, ask yourself, what are 3 things that happened to me today that I'm grateful for?
Ooh,
Yeah. And why am I grateful for these things? Yeah.
yes.
Research has shown that So normally that exercise is done, let's say, in a uni for 7 days, and that they tell you just do it. They do a pre-assessment and a post-assessment, and they
Okay.
see the difference how people have changed.
Mm.
However, they did this as a research, and they realized after 6 months, people were still having a better outcome, and they were feeling better well-being, like due to that exercise. So that's one
Mm.
exercise I would like to highlight for people who are listening to us and to implement it with our children. So what I'm doing next week, I bought a very nice book. Yeah. And I want my children every single day to put one thing they're grateful for on that copy, on that book. And imagine after, I don't know, maybe 2 years, maybe 20 years, you go back and
Mm.
see, look what we have shared every single day. Like it would be the
It's
end of
beautiful.
day where we can share all one thing that we were grateful for.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
The first thing I think of is like you know, when you go to a wedding and they have the registration and
Yes.
people are writing, how beautiful. It's like a
Y-
gratitude journal.
Yes, but as a family. So you
Yeah,
can keep it.
that's awesome.
And one day, like, it's really nice. So I would encourage people to do small things like this with their family, because especially in the Western world, we are losing the family ties. It's more
Mhm.
about, okay, making money, surviving. It's all about encouraging the family to lose its value.
Right.
You see? And the second thing I want to ask you about, because this is the main point. So, you know how you went out of your way and now you started doing those dinners with your family, with your daughter, just to build that connection. But can you can you share a bit your internal feelings? Like before you would be able to sit with your daughter and talk, I'm sure you had some talks with yourself and decided to change things also on a personal level, not only with your relationship with your daughter, right?
Yeah, I did have a internal conversation with myself, but I feel the conversation was more about why I was doing what I was doing and why I wanted to fix her.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I wanted to fix her. And as started to do like the therapy work and started to do the journal work, I realized that, oh, okay, well, maybe she's really not the one that needs fixing. Maybe I'm the one with the issue here because her taking out the garbage is not a her problem. It's a me problem. I mean, I know we have as a family to do things collectively, to clean up, to take things out, but mainly focusing on that particular task, that was something that I had to identify with like, hey, is there something deeper inside besides the trash? What's behind her taking out the trash? Is it that she's not listening to you? Is it that you want a clean house? What is really deeply bothering you outside of that task of taking the trash out? And so that was really something that I had to come back, and I think it was recently. It was a power dynamic. Me trying to manipulate her emotionally because
okay,
I wanted her to do what I wanted her to do.
yeah,
And so really that was the underlying factor. And that's the environmental cultural conditioning thing that was carried over from, and I'm not trying to throw shade on my parents. I'm just highlighting some things that I thought weren't so good. And in this phase of where I'm at, I feel that I have a better relationship with my kids because of the vulnerability and the transparency that I'm having with them.
yeah. I'm happy you mentioned that, because this is one topic that comes in every single conversation I have with parents. It's house duties. Um, they need to do this. That's how they will learn. uh, responsibility. But yes, very true. Imagine we are ruining our relationships with our kids just because we want them to do that specific thing without knowing that their language is different than our language. And what I mean by that, for me, I need my house to be clean, and I need
Hmm.
this to be done, this to be done, that to be done. For them, at this age, leave it. Why are you even removing the garbage? Why are you even worried about if you don't clean them now, clean them later? Like, and we come with our, like, I'm 45. I cannot come with my 45 years old mind trying to impose on my kids something I think that is essential. They don't care about it. And to be honest,
Mm-mm.
I discovered a formula for that. And I learned it from my mom. And now I'm really applying it. And I get a lot of criticism about it. Yeah. So my mom,
Yes.
even until today, when I travel back home to Lebanon, yeah, I don't wash dishes. I don't wash anything. Mom loves to do it for me. And growing up,
I love it, Dima.
growing up, mom never like asked us to do anything, yeah? But
Mm,
she was really a role model for us. So what happened is we're three girls and one boy. All of us in our homes followed my mom's way, and our homes are really clean, organized. We all have that. So I thought, you know what? Mom never like she was hard in different areas, but in
mhm.
those specific areas, she was never lady thinks she said, I wish I had a mama like that. I
That's
am
funny.
that mama now. So I have three teenager girls. They're 16, 17, and 19. And when I'm home and I have time, you know what I do? I do everything. And I always talk to them and I tell them, like, do this. It's good to have your room clean. I really give them, I give I don't criticize. I just share with them how nice it would be. And to my surprise, when my daughters travel to my parents or they go anywhere, I get these compliments from people telling me, "Oh my God, your daughters are really good. They do everything." And I'm like, "Yeah,
So it's the power of suggestion, right? You're like, man, this house would really look beautiful if that was moved out the way or something.
yeah." And I do it. I do it anyway without. So I have people that I teach them this way. And you know what they do? The next thing they tell me, I told them, I told my daughter I'm disappointed in her because she didn't do her room. Like, no, 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 no. It shouldn't be attached to any expectations. So you show
Mm,
your daughter how to do a room first time, second time, third time. Trust me, in your house, they will not do it. They will only do it when they have to. And instead of ruining our relationships with our kids, I would suggest to anyone hearing me, you can divide the tasks, yes, especially if you are a working mother and don't have time, right? But instead of saying you have to do this and if you don't do it, I'll be disappointed, say, I really need your help. And here people would jump and say, what do you mean? It's not only my house, they're sitting in their house. It's not about health, it's about responsibility. Yes, I
yeah.
understand where you come from. It is their responsibility, but we are the parent. And I'm
Mhm.
not talking a woman or a man, I'm talking whoever is in charge of this house can divide the task, but need to be compassionate. Going back, compassionate, being compassionate with other people starts always by being compassionate with ourselves. And we can talk about this now.
Oh my gosh, Dima, I'm going to tell you about an event that happened with my daughter. I think a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if I
Yeah.
told you that. She wanted her boyfriend to come over to the house, and they've been dating for 4 years. And I was trying to tell her that in our culture, and a lot of cultures, boyfriends aren't allowed to come over the house. And so I was telling her, that's really not something uh, that is practiced in a lot of cultures. But what I'll try to do is, because I wanted the space in my house to be my own. Because sometimes I'll come over and he'll be in the house, and I'm a single mom, and it's just me and her. And I feel like for me, I just want to walk around my house sometimes, without the energy of a male in the house. And so she was like, "Well, how come I can invite my girlfriend over, but you don't have a problem, but when he comes over, you have a problem?" I said, "Because he's a guy." And so we ended up going back and forth in the conversation to where she said, "Well, there's another thing I should introduce into the conversation," which I said, "Well, the dating thing, I don't mind you guys are dating." And then I tried to talk about like how how the structure of dating would be done culturally, right? And then she goes, "Mom, you really don't have any room to talk about dating." She's like, "Because your background in dating is very messed up." And I said to myself, I really want to choke you right now. And then I told her, yes, you're right. My dating life has definitely been one that hasn't been good. But also, too, what I have done, and you've seen through the past like 3 to 5 years, the things that I've done to implement in our home to create safety and a safe space for you guys to be here. And then fast forward, I told her that I wanted her to contribute more to the household. And so we ended up creating like this schedule where she would clean up, and then we'd skip a day. I would clean up, then we skipped a day. And we just came to a consensus that, okay, we can still have people over, but they're going to come over on a certain day. So having like this adult relationship now, right, versus when she was younger, there had to be like more of a negotiation process. And then
Yeah.
also too, um, going back to the conversation, I said, you know, just because you've seen the relationship that I had before, that doesn't necessarily mean you can throw that in my face. And I think that you need to apologize, which I don't think she did, but she knew that I was right, because here I am in boundaries and walking in a new space. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yeah, that's very important. And that's what you just, the example you just gave us, that's what we need to do more with our kids. And and a lot of times, this apology might not come in words. It could come by them being more compassionate with us,
Mm,
you know? And
yeah.
a lot of times they would tell us something that is very close to how we feel, and we really feel bad about ourselves. And because we don't want to hear it, because I'm sure, like, I've been into that space where I look at myself and I look back at the people that I had in my life, and I feel like, how did I accept this to happen? How did I allow this to happen? And and this is where I come up, by the way, with the smile method,
Right.
because I realized that a lot of times in my relationships, it was clear that something was wrong, and I couldn't say no and walk away except after I felt the pain a lot.
Mm, yeah.
And and this was obviously a lack of emotional intelligence, because when we are not emotionally intelligent, we really postpone things just because we cannot face the consequences that we really don't want, but we know that they are better for us. Yeah.
Mm,
And
right.
when I was, like, in the past 7 years, when I've been really understanding more and more human behavior, how relationships work, and why we don't have emotional intelligence, I realized it started definitely when we were young. And
Mhm.
yesterday I was sharing with my partner about how I recall being very sensitive when I was young. Yeah. And I used to cry a lot. Whenever someone talks to me, I cry a lot. And they used to call me in Arabic, it's called Bumi, which is the owl.
Booming?
Okay. Yeah. And it used to be, and yesterday I only remembered that story. And I said to him, you know what? It's so, if I look back and I see, I think I was crying all the time because I needed someone to care. I needed
Mm,
someone to really hug me and tell me that's going to be okay. That's,
yeah.
you know, so when we have that lack, if I compared, I would say we all have a tank.
Mm-hmm.
That emotional tank, if it's filled properly, we stop having the urge to have people in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
We actually want to have people in our lives. And I'll go back to my kids. I have three daughters, and normally in their age, I'm in Australia, even in Lebanon, in their age, kids have the tendency to be like 16, 17, and 19. They would be like dying to have a boyfriend. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
With my kids, I worked so hard to creating a balance of like emotional energy that whenever they had any problem, I would come talk to them and feel how? Just by listening to them unconditionally, trying not to jump into conversation, give advice. I learned to listen. The more I listened, the more I gave them words of affirmation. When they do something right, I stop and tell them, that's really good. Thank you. And sometimes, yes, they had to do the laundry, but I say, thank you for helping me. Thank you
Mm,
for doing this. What happened? I raised their emotional intelligence. We reached a place now where, yeah, mom, it's nice to have a boyfriend like my friend, but you know what? I'm not willing to have any boyfriend for the sake of having a boyfriend. So you see
mm,
how emotional
totally.
intelligence works to fill our emotional tank and the emotional tank of the people we care for so
Totally.
that they choose the right people. Now, the smile method goes like this. S. So for me to achieve the E, which is the emotional intelligence,
Okay.
you need to start with self-mastery. And self-mastery is self-respect,
Mm,
self-love, self-confidence, self um, not only love, self unconditional love. So even if I do something wrong, self compassion, I
mm.
stop and I say, you know what? I did something wrong. It's okay. I chose the wrong partner. Let me stop and see what are the things I didn't like, what are the things that worked. So when you
Totally.
start having that dialogue with yourself, trust me, your love to yourself becomes so big that you lead your life. And by leading your life, what's going to happen? You're going to shine. You're going to feel an infinite amount of energy that will lead you to really be okay to be alone.
Mm,
Be okay to love yourself enough not to judge a bully. And this is a really important sentence. Yeah. You hear on the news, you hear on social media, we hear everywhere people talking about bullying as at work, in
mhm,
relationships with friends, at home, everywhere. For me, bullying stops existing when you love yourself enough. Why? Because you look at the bully and you say, their opinion is not my reality.
mm,
If someone comes and says something bad to me, I don't even retaliate because I understand where they come from. And normally a bully is bullied.
mm.
And I'm not suggesting that we need to go and be friends with them, but what I'm suggesting is not to have grudges because your grudges are going to stand in the way of your life and are going to strip you out of energy to allow you to move on.
So just identify that the bully's behavior comes from whatever experience that they've had. So now they're
Yes.
trying to overpower somebody that they are looking at as weak, but that's only their perception.
Yes. And normally they do it with the people that they look up to.
Wow.
So when we develop that self mastery, that's the S of the smile method.
Hmm.
We can be also working on the second step, which is mindfulness. And
Mm,
mindfulness is I know how to lead myself, then life is going on, life is moving, and tomorrow is not guaranteed. why don't I learn to live the moment, even with my parenting, even with my relationships, knowing that today might be the last day of my life.
Mm,
So imagine you leading yourself properly, becoming in peace with time. And I always say, like, I'm a believer. I believe in God. People believe in so many different things. Yeah. But there's a question that I started asking myself when I hit rock bottom and I started going upward and changing my life. It was, if it was the last day of my life, what would I tell God tomorrow? I'll tell
mm.
him I was upset because of my relationship. I was like upset because of my death at that stage. I was upset because, what should I tell God? Or if it's a blank and some people say, I don't believe in God, like, what are you telling me? I said, if tomorrow is blank and you believe there's nothing else that's going to happen, how are you spending your last day? Would you make the best out of it, or would you ruminate on the stuff that has been happening to you and feeling like a victim and again losing your self-love just for the sake of being in comfort with that zone?
So not sweating the small stuff and really living intentionally.
Intentionally with the moment. So that's the M. The
Okay.
third one relates to that, which is inner peace.
Ah, okay.
So first, we know how to lead ourselves. Second, second, we learn how to lead time, how to deal with time. The third one is how to deal with circumstances. And this
Mm,
is where I tell people life is about the ups and downs. Can
mm.
you tell me, if if a baby didn't fall and roll and crawl, they would be able to run? No way. So in our life, the circumstances we face are not against us, actually. They are there to help one muscle of our brain or mind or body to get stronger. And when
Okay.
that muscle gets stronger, we know how to deal with that circumstance and upgrade our life. And that's why the next lesson is going to be harder, because we are stronger. Does this make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It's practicing, it's the application, right? It's the application of building up on one thing to another. It's just like working out. We have to being consistent in putting the practice in, right?
Yes. And once, like, I'm sure whoever is listening to us today is going to feel like, oh, that's something new. I want to try to do it. And it doesn't take all the effort in the world to start practicing this. It's
Mm,
just now, whoever is going to listen to this, stop, close your eyes and think, what are the challenges you're facing today?
mm,
How they're going to make you stronger. If today is your last day, does it matter if you worry about this, or it's better to just look at them as a challenge, try to see. And this is where I introduce the hypothetical or real problem. I'm gonna, after we finish this smile, if we have time, I'm gonna give this exercise about how to deal with problems when they are hypothetical.
okay.
So the fourth one is L for leadership. So
Leadership.
you cannot lead people if you don't know how to lead yourself, deal with your time, and deal with circumstances.
Totally.
So as a parent, we are leaders.
Yeah, we are.
And that leadership cannot be except if we have self-leadership. And that's why sometimes our kids, like your daughter, when she said, but mom, you're telling me about this and you're not sucks. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, you're not successful in that area. Don't tell me about it.
and this is where we can explain to our kids that, mom, we're all in a growth, we're in a growth period, we're all in progress.
Yeah,
Yes, but I'm learning through them, and that's why I'm telling you I prefer your boyfriend not to be here. And that's
yeah,
why, because of the mistakes I've done, that's what makes me stronger.
yeah,
And that's how I want you to learn from your mistakes. So it's that leadership that gets you to stop being offended also by what your kids have to say. Because one of the problems I see in a lot of parenting relationships are people expecting their children to do the right thing when they don't do the right thing. That's one.
They're
Like,
not modeling, right? They're only
yeah,
saying the things that they
and
want,
even if it's
right?
and even if it's not with their relationships, it's also at home with their partner, with their dad, like the
Yeah.
dad. Or so when they see you not doing these things and ask you to do, and you ask them to do it, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking in general. As a
Yeah,
parent,
yeah,
we ask ourselves, we ask our kids to do something we don't do. One of the example: don't drink soft drink, and I'm holding the soft drink cap in my hand. Don't smoke, and I'm smoking. Don't vape, and I'm vaping. No, 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 I'm older. No, it doesn't work that way. So
yeah,
leadership, we lead by example. We need to nurture kids. We need to inspire them. We need to empower them. We need to hold their hands and walk with them instead of being the boss at work and trying to tell them that's right, that's wrong, and they end up not learning anything.
yeah. Like I told you earlier, like my daughter, she didn't trust me until they saw that I was doing what I said I was going to do. I had to lead by example, like you said.
Yes, and that leads us to emotional intelligence, which is actually the product of the four together. And here I like to move it, even to push it a bit more. Emotional intelligence would lead us to emotional resilience
Mm,
when we practice it. So with time, with experience, dealing with people, not sitting away from everyone and trying to grow. You cannot grow when you are alone. So a lot of times when we fail with relationships, what people do, they say, I don't want to have a relationship anymore.
mm-hmm.
No, stop. Learn from that relationship, see what went wrong, compare it to your self-love, compare it to you as a person. What do you really want from a relationship? And one of the things I see because of our empty emotional tank is that we see ourselves empty. We're not empty. We are a full circle. We deal with different areas of our lives, whether it is um, family, work, health, and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And the four have different seasons. If I don't have someone to love now or to love me, that doesn't mean my love relationship is doesn't exist. It means it's at a low percentage.
And you need to
So
give it
when
to yourself.
yes, and when we have the full, then
Mm,
we know when we have a partner, we know that I will not allow someone to be in my life if they're not adding value to my life.
yeah.
They're not gonna fill a gap. They are adding value.
Yes.
And by this, reaching emotional resilience is really freedom.
Mm,
As a parent or as a partner, you're going to feel that you are in charge of your emotions. You stop being um, moody or go up. I'm very, very happy. I'm very, very upset. You stop having that feeling. You
right.
live in a space where you really feel you are in balance. And guess what? As a parent, imagine raising your children while being in that space. And when I say that space, doesn't mean that we don't get upset. You know how many times, even recently, my kids would see me cry out of nowhere because
Mhm.
I've been trying to be strong for so long. You go through a lot of things, but instead of making it look like I'm the victim, my life is bad, I look at them and say, Mom, life always give us things that sometimes we cannot take, but that's where I know that I am getting stronger. And when I tell them, maybe in the past I used to cry every day 10 times. If I
Mm,
cry once every 1 week or 2 weeks, that's good
yeah.
because this is how I'm stretching. But the good thing is not to get stuck in that space and feel that there's no way out.
I wanted to bring something up. It's 8:01. I don't know how much more time, Dima. I don't have anything scheduled after, but if you want to go a little longer, I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Um,
you know what? I once just just to laugh about this, I once told someone that, you know what, when I go on TV, I go regularly on TV, on radio, and I'm like, even when I give a workshop, they tell me, no, 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 professionally, You start on time and you end on time because people will think that you don't have anything else to do. I'm like, you know what? I don't care. Because for me,
Okay, great.
when I do these things, we really want to give as much as possible
Value.
about a certain topic. And I'm
Yeah.
more than happy to stay, answer if anyone has any questions, any
Okay.
specific dilemma, we're here to answer.
Okay. Because I wanted to talk about that space that you mentioned earlier, how when we parent from that space of fullness, right? Because I do remember there were times when I came in the house and my kids really had to walk on eggshells because I wasn't feeling happy that day. And so, being at the happy space that I'm at now, I can totally see what you're referring to because the fluctuation with emotion in the household. And like you mentioned earlier, kids are only modeling what we're modeling. And so they take on that kind of dynamic too when they go into a relationship or in their own home. And that's really not something that, as parents, it's not, I don't think it's a healthy way to promote um loving oneself, because that is such a negative energy is what I'm going to call it. Because now
Yeah.
they can't be themselves, right? They if they cannot be themselves at home, how can they be themselves with other people?
Thank you for mentioning this because you know how many kids hate being at home?
Mm, I'm sure
You
a
know
lot.
how many kids, how many adults, young adults, choose the wrong partner just
Mm,
because they want to run away from home?
yep.
And this is what we're trying to say, that we don't want our kids to be in that space. And trust me, if you are a parent that is a perfectionist, that
Mm,
wants to manipulate their kids because they want them to listen to them, because they think they want to show people that they are the good parents, this child is going to run away from you. And I wrote something now while you're talking. It's not about having the perfect life.
mm,
We, I don't believe in something called perfect life. Why? Perfectionism is not only related to you. If I live like on this farm 24/7 for the rest of my life, yeah, it is related to me. But perfectionism is related to you, to time, to the people around you. And with time, every single second, the standards change because you are changing as a person.
right.
So, what a perfect life is about living the gain in the pain, is seeing the gain in the pain, is understanding that life is like that. It's
Yes.
at one point I said, at before I hit rock bottom, I used to be the cart on the roller coaster of life. So I would be like up and down. Yeah.
Yes.
What I realized is I don't want to resign from life.
Mm,
I became the structure.
that's
So
good,
you
Dima.
start being stable while you're looking at life going up and down. And yes, we can interact with our emotions and feel the pain, but instead of staying in the pain for weeks and months, we start looking at it, appreciating those ups and downs and what they bring into our lives, building on them to become a better person.
Mm, totally. I want to go back and make sure that I repeat the smile method for people that are watching. So the first one, smile, is self mastery. The second one is mindfulness. The third one is inner peace. The fourth one is leadership. And the fifth one is emotional intelligence, which it encompasses all of those steps. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And the more we grow, the more we tend to be emotionally resilient, which gets us, instead of stopping, and choosing your reaction becomes natural. So you don't have to make the effort. And here, I'm going to share something. At the start of any transformation, it's hard. So let's
Mhm.
say someone wants to learn how to drive, and our kids are learning how to drive their lives. We are learning how to drive certain skills in our lives. So when you first go into the car and you don't know anything about the car, the first thing you know, the rules of the road before you even jump into the car. So what we're doing, our job as an instructor is to teach our kids life. Our
Yeah.
job as a person is to learn about life, learn about what's happening. Then the next thing is when we go into the car, there should be an instructor. So
Mhm.
as a child, we are the instructor. So the instructor, if the instructor wants to give instructions, if they give it with anger, the kids don't interact. And that's what happens with a lot of teachers. I'm sure we all know a teacher who used to impose on us something that we laugh at them and we never listen to what they have to say. So you have an instructor. We are the instructor of that person. Sometimes in life, our instructor could be a mentor or could be a therapist or it could be God. It could be someone we rely on outside of ourselves that could tell us, or it could be a book. It could be a podcast. It could be anything that is guiding us on the right track, right?
Yep.
Now, we're learning how to drive. That's called the slow system, where we're very aware, we make mistakes, but we have a guide next to us.
Mhm.
Then, with time, it becomes something natural. And at the end, we're driving, talking over the phone, sometimes texting while we are on the phone. We sometimes the car takes us where we want.
Right.
Sometimes we're so immersed that we go to the house rather than going to the office. So what I'm trying to say is don't feel overwhelmed by all this information you're
Yeah.
hearing.
Yeah.
All what we're trying to say that drive your life. You have the ability to drive it. You have all the tools to drive it, but especially the car of parenting needs you to be ready before you can change your kid. And going back to what you said, you wanted to fix your daughter. And we all know by now that the kids, Khalil Gibran, I don't know if you know what he said about your
Familiar.
kids, Khalil Gibran. He's American Lebanese. He was a philosopher. He said, your kids are not your kids, they are the kids of life. So
Mm.
we are only a tool to bring those kids to life. We give them up to 12 years old. And I think it would be a good idea to start our next episode with how behavior starts.
Okay.
When
That
does
sounds
behavior
good.
start? How does behavior start? How our kids, and what is the age, the cutoff age where we start guidance instead of parenting,
Mm.
like instead of installing the program. So this is gonna be what we're gonna talk next time
Okay.
is how can we change the behavior of our kids once we already change our behavior? And this way, by learning about this information, we will understand why we act the way we act and how can we change our actions as well.
Okay, cool. What I'm gonna do, Dima, is I'm gonna ask if there's anybody else that may have any questions. So I'm gonna check
Yes, for
the.
sure.
Okay, give me just a second. If you are in social media land and watching us, and you have a question for Ms. Dima or myself, please feel free to drop it in the chat, and we will be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have. So I'm on Facebook. I don't see anything here. Oh, a lot of people said 100 to you, Dima. They said I couldn't agree more.
Now,
Oh,
it's
I have to hook you up with Abigail McCrail because she's a neuropsych. She is she applies neuropsychology into her licensed clinical social work. So I think that you
yeah,
guys also have a great conversation together.
ready. And really, whoever is listening to us, because sometimes we have questions, we're ashamed to put them on like on a chat or ask
Oh
them.
yeah.
We're more than happy, me or friend, to receive your question, to receive, to help you with any problems you're dealing with. Because as we first started, this podcast is not, we're not promoting our businesses. We're not really here to sell you something. All what we want is to get you to understand that parenting is a journey, it's a game, and I have like my workshops are all around the game of life and how to play it. And
Mhm.
they're based on my book, Intentional Reset. That even if you want a copy from my book, I'm not going to ask you to go on Amazon. You contact me, I'll send it to you. So this life is a game, whether it's parenting or relationships, anything you deal with at work, it's a game. If you know the rules of the game, you will play it in an easy way. If you don't know
Totally.
the rules of the game, you will always break your head and say, oh my God, I'm unlucky, I'm a victim. We're not victims. We are, each one of us is a perfect template for today.
Mm.
Enjoy it. And we're ready for anything you want.
I have a comment here from my cousin Keela. She said, "No, just listening. Thank you so much. Was an awesome to listen and see other people's point of view."
That's good. And
Oh.
we welcome any other point of view, even if you disagree with us. You can always put it in the comment and we can have this conversation.
Okay, cool. If you don't have anything else to share, Dima, I am going to close this down for the evening.
Thank you so much and see you
You're
next
welcome.
week learning more about behavior.
All right. Thanks, Dima.
Thank you.
Okay.